Greetings citizens of the world. According to this report, the MOFA has been tasked by the Security Council, SC, with monitoring the activities of the Democratic Party since 19 August when the Federal Service for Supervision of Communications, Information Technology and Mass Media, Roskomnadzor, ordered that these American racists were not being able to establish any website in Russia due to their racist history and who over the past few months have employed mass mob action tactics in an effort to keep their racist past from being known by their destruction of monuments erected to honor their former historical leaders. Standing nearly alone in the United States against these Democratic Party racial terrorists attempting to obliterate their own history, this report explains. The Tennessee Historical Commission, yesterday, quickly rebuffed an attempt by their Republican Governor Bill Haslam to begin the destruction of their state's historical monuments, and that in his 28 August letter to commission members, Governor Haslam urged them to begin the cover-up of Democratic Party racial crimes by their ordering the immediate removal of a statue bust in the state capital of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Nathan Bedford Forrest, this report explains, was a member of the Democratic Party in the pre-Civil War American South, and a lieutenant general in the Confederate Army during the American Civil War, and who after the war became a member of a group of former Confederate soldiers named the Ku Klux Klan, KKK or the Klan, but who, in 1869, switched his allegiance to the anti-slavery Republican Party, causing him to issue KKK General Order No. 1 that stated, "It is therefore ordered and decreed that the masks and costumes of this order be entirely abolished and destroyed," and who, also, in 1874, volunteered to help exterminate those men responsible for the continued violence against the blacks. Important to note about the Ku Klux Klan, this report details, is that how it existed during the time of Nathan Bedford Forrest bears no relationship at all to what it is today, as the KKK of Forrest's time, first KKK, was completely destroyed by U.S. government in the mid-1870s, with the second KKK being established in 1915 under the leadership of Democratic Party President Woodrow Wilson and fading away in the 1940s, and the present third KKK being established during the 1950s and 1960s under various Democratic Party leaders, most notably Democratic Party Governor of Alabama George Wallace, and top Alabama Democratic Party official Bull Connor. In all of its historical iterations, though, this report continues, the KKK is most widely known as being the terrorist wing of the Democrat Party and whose actions today on behalf of the Democratic Party can be likened to those used by Democrat slave owners in times past, called overseers and drivers, and who are being funded by an organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, to funnels millions of dollars received from elite Democratic Party individuals and companies to overseas bank accounts, that they then, in turn, use to finance the KKK, and other type white supremacist organizations, they can find or create. As to why the Democratic Party needs to fund its KKK terrorist wing, this report explains, is due to their losing control of what was called the Solid South when, in the mid-1960s, the Republican Party forced through the U.S. Congress a number of major laws destroying the Democratic Party's Jim Crow laws they had put in place to keep black peoples from being free, but that then Democratic Party President Lyndon Johnson vowed to counter with his bluntly stating, "I'll have them niggers voting for Democrats for 200 years. To how the Democratic Party managed to keep their nation's black citizens enslaved, this report continues, was by their wholly supporting their Democratic Party leader President Johnson's supposed anti-poverty Great Society series of laws enacted in the mid-1960s, and meant as a countermeasure against the Republican Party's civil rights legislation, but whose disastrous effects upon the black peoples of America shows the vast majority of them living today in 24 major U.S. cities controlled by the Democratic Party that are indistinguishable from the southern plantations their slave ancestors were freed from by the Republicans, and whose grim exact similarities include broken down and dilapidated and unsafe housing, broken families, a high degree of violence required in order to hold the place together. Everybody gets a basic provision, but nobody gets ahead. Nihilism and despair. This is an intergenerational, ongoing, lasting way of life. Even worse for the black peoples in America living on these Democratic Party-controlled city plantations, this report grimly continues, is the mass genocide by abortion of their future generations too, and that the Black Genocide Organization gives one horrific example of by their recounting of a civil rights leader saying, several years ago, when 17,000 aborted babies were found in a dumpster outside a pathology laboratory in Los Angeles, California, some 12 to 15,000 were observed to be black. This report concludes by noting that the Democratic Party's main funder of terrorism, the Southern Poverty Law Center, is urging its mob masses to destroy every single monument in America depicting the Democratic Party's past leaders in Confederacy before the masses of black peoples discover what's been done to them, and further learn that only the Republican Party has tried to keep them free, and whose valiant anti-slavery heritage was displayed yesterday by nearly all of the Republican Party members of the Tennessee Historical Commission stopping this historical carnage from taking place, and who are guided by the Tennessee Heritage Protection Act that swears them to protect, preserve, interpret, maintain, and administer historic places, and to encourage the inclusive diverse study of Tennessee's history.